Welcome to this committee meeting. Please ensure that telephones and other noise-making devices are silenced and powered off. The consumption of food and beverages in Senate rooms is prohibited. If you wish to address this committee, please be prepared to approach the lectern when public comment is requested. Identify yourself for the record and observe the stated time limits.
Open the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I am Senator Rouse, Chair of P&E. It's good to have you all here today. First, we will start by having the members of this committee introduce themselves, their name and their district, and that will be followed by our Director of Elections will come up with the introduction from the Secretary. And so we'll start to my right here, then come to my left. So, Senator DeSteph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bill DeSteph, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Accomack, Northampton, and 42 other towns. Happy to be here. It's District 20, and it'll be a great day and a great committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Glenn Sturdivant, representing Chesterfield and Colonial Heights, District 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator John McGuire, Senate District 10, that's Hanover, Louisa, Goochland, Powhatan, Amelia, Fluvanna, Cumberland, Buckingham, Appomattox, and a little bit of Prince Edward, Farmville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Danny Diggs, Senate District 24, Poquoson, York County, Williamsburg, part of James City, and half of Newport News.
My name is Creed Deeds. I represent the 11th District, which is Charlottesville, Albemarle, Nelson, Amherst, and a part of Louisa.
I'm Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy. I represent the 33rd District, parts of Prince William County and Fairfax County.
Skylar Van Valkenburg, I represent the 16th District in Western Henrico County.
Saddam Salim representing Senate District 37th, that's Central Fairfax.
Thank you, members. Will the Secretary come up and introduce herself along with the Director of Elections?
Thank you, Chairman Rouse, and thank you, committee members, for inviting me and Commissioner Beals to speak with you today. I have been Secretary of Administration now for 2 years, and I've learned an awful lot about how government runs. And having elections as part of my responsibility has been a real education. What I realize is elections is a very complex business, and it really is all about people, process, and technology. So I'd like to introduce Commissioner Beals as one who has really made significant improvements in all of those areas. In the people area, what she has done is mostly, the most important thing to me anyway, is reached out to all of the registrars and formed really close relationships with the local election officials, such that as elections are being planned and run, she has those contacts and communicates regularly with all of those local officials. She's also built a really strong team of people that understand how the processes work and how the technology works. In the area of process, you all do a lot of changes, as you can tell from your docket today, and all of those changes need to be implemented in the election department process as well as the technology. And when you look at the technology, we are replacing a 17-year-old system. And you all, I think, will be very much involved in getting updates on that new system. But in the meantime, making significant improvements to the VERIS system such that it will, in fact, last for the next 18 months or so. So with that, I would like to, again, thank you for inviting us and bring up Commissioner Beals to give you her update.
Good afternoon, members, Chairman Rouse, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Susan Beals. I have been serving as the Commissioner of the Department of Elections since March of 2022. I'm a native of Great Falls, Virginia. I spent the last 18 years in Chesterfield County, Virginia. Before coming to the department, I was a local election official as a member of the Chesterfield County Electoral Board, where I served for 3 years, 2019, 2020, and 2021. During that time, I was the sole Republican member of the board and worked in a nonpartisan fashion with my 2 Democratic colleagues on the electoral board and the registrar to administer those elections. I'm extremely grateful for that on-the-ground experience and was able to work each day of 45 days of early voting in 2020 and 2021 to help explain law changes to voters and help them navigate voting during the pandemic. During my service at the Department of Elections, we have completed redistricting and implemented new legislation that has required same-day registration, ranked choice voting, absentee by precinct reporting, enhancements to risk-limiting audits. We have negotiated and signed a contract and began building the new statewide voter registration system. And also, we have shored up Veris to carry us through 2024 through the presidential election. This year, we debuted a new election night reporting system that helped provide more data illustrations, improved accuracy of results, front-end validation, so that we were sure that the results we're reporting on election night are as accurate as they can be. And we also, in 2023, completed the first 4-year cycle of elections in Virginia with expanded early voting options. So we now have 4 years that we can look back at and say, this is what a year of early voting looks like for this type of election in Virginia. I look forward to working with each of you and providing technical assistance that you may require during the legislative session for any of your pieces of legislation. Please know that me and my team are here to answer your questions about how legislation will impact the department and our 133 local general registrars. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bills and Secretary, for being here today. So we'll start on the docket now. We'll get some procedural matters out the way. First, we have some bills that we need to straight refer to other committees, which is good for us, get them off our plate. So we have SB 22, and I have already spoken to the patrons, so they know their bills will be referred to another committee. That's SB 22, Dentist and Dental Hygienist Compact. There's SB 407, Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. There's SB 239, Social Work Licensure Compact. Those bills will be referred to Education and Health. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Please open the vote to refer those to Education and Health. Do you have to do it one by one, or you want to do it in the block? In block. Okay.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Those referred to into Education and Health in a block. The next one we need to refer SB 364. We need to refer that to Courts of Justice. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's motion second. Please open the vote.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you. Next, we will deal with our constitutional amendments. I've already spoken to the patrons. These bills will be carried over because the first year constitutional amendments will be entered into odd number years. There will be an exception on a bill that would be on the second reading, but that would be at a different committee. Is there a motion to carry them over?
So moved. Second.
Please open the vote.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you. And now we will start from our list by way of signing up. And I think we have Senator Reeves first on the list. Senator Reeves, I've noticed before you begin, what bill will you be starting with?
We can start at 165, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I bring this bill because of an incident in my district, and I think it happened in some of your all's on the other side of the aisle district as well. You all are aware that when we file a certificate of candidacy, can you pass that out? Thank you. When we file our certificate of candidacy, I'm just going to read it, but I'm having the pages pass it out. It says, if I'm a candidate in a primary and I'm defeated in the primary, my name is not to be printed on the ballots to be used in the succeeding general election for the same office. That line to me isn't very clear. And so we started to look. We had several candidates in our...
Senator Reeves, I don't mean to cut you off, Mary Trustman, but what are you referring to? We're on SB 165, correct?
I am.
Okay, this is not SB 167. It's very similar.
Do I got them swapped?
165, the start date.
Yes, so 165, Senator Reeves, is the clarifies the date from which the valid signatures of petition are qualified
I'm
voters.
sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the bill and then I'm looking at a different document. My apologies to the committee. Mr. Chairman, this again came up in my district.
So I'm sorry, Senator Reeves. So do you want to start with 167 instead, or do you want to start with 165?
Let's start with the date of the election, where I think that's...
Okay. So we're, to the committee understands, we're on SB 165.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies. Mr. Chairman, we had two candidates for local office that read the code. The code was somewhat ambiguous about what the actual start date that you can start gathering petitions. And so these two candidates went out, they started gathering petitions on January 1st. Originally, they turned them in. The registrar turned them in. They read it that they were qualified to do it. Somebody else read it. Next thing you know, we're in a legal battle. It goes up to State Board of Elections. They go one way, then they go the other way. And so what happened was we wound up having to file an opinion with the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General came back, and I just want to read what they said. Let me get page 2 on it. An examination of other parts of the Code of Virginia affirms that the signature obtained on January 1st is not equivalent to one collected after January 1st in the provisions of Virginia's election law. The General Assembly has used the phrase on or after to specify instances in which particular action may be carried out either on or after a discrete day. So basically what the Attorney General came down saying is that those, I can go on, had the General Assembly intended to allow for collection of signatures to begin on January 1st, it could have said so. Accordingly, the fact that it is not supports the conclusion that the time frame allotted for qualifying signatures does not exceed to those collected prior to January 2nd, including those obtained on January 1st. It goes on, he has a few more things to say, but basically, the day you can start gathering petitions is the 2nd. And what this language is that we have before the committee today clarifies that specifically, that you can't start getting signatures till January 2nd. It's pretty simple, but that's the bill.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. Do you have anyone to speak in support? Seeing none, are there questions and comments from the committee? Senator Valkenburg.
Mr. Chairman, just a clarifying question. I thought I heard Senator Reeves say you can't start getting signatures until after January 1st?
Correct.
As I read the bill, it allows them to start on January 1st.
It says, let me read the AG opinion. This definition applied to them, because January 1st makes up an entire day rather than a specific time of day, only January 2nd and later dates can be said to be after January 1st. Therefore, he concluded the petition signatures obtained January 1st was not signed by blank ... voter after January 1st, all of that year, relevant year, as contemplated under Virginia law. And he goes on to explain further why that's the case. So what my bill is all trying to do is, got.
Any more questions or comments from the committee? Anyone speak in opposition of this bill? I'm sorry. Senator McGuire.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I've received a couple of texts in that there are folks trying to get online to comment. Is that possible?
Not in the moment. Anyone in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to report. Second.
Open the roll.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bill reports.
Now to 167. Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me, Senator Reeds. Before you begin on that, you have a very similar bill to Street Line Bill, SB 109. Did you want to roll those in together, or would you want to do them separate? It's on you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what's in Senator Suderline's bill.
It's basically the same bill.
That Brooks, is it saying?
Yeah, so the first section that's amended in Senator Suderline's bill is identical to the first section that's amended in Senator Reeves' bill. Senator Reeves has an additional section which applies to write-ins that Senator Suderline's does not have. So there's
Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak to that write-ins, and if we can add that, I don't mind merging them. That's the reason I'm here, is the write-ins part.
I want to send for the patron of that bill. Just a moment. Do you have any more bills before us?
I don't, but if we want to punt it till Senator Suderline and I can talk.
Well, you can speak to your bill now. He should be on the way.
Okay.
So please continue.
So basically what we had was, if you look at the declaration of candidacy that each of you have, it says in there, if I'm a candidate in a primary and I'm defeated in the primary, my name is not to be printed on the ballots to be used in the succeeding general election for the same office. The intent of that is to say, if you lose in the primary, you're not going to be playing in the general. And so what we did was we looked at other states. North Carolina was probably most aligned where we are. And they have, I don't know any other way to call it, a sore loser law, that if your name is written in, that those votes won't be counted because you've already said you're not going to be on the ballot. But this has to do with those write-in names, where substantially, if you look at a lot of the elections of some of those write-in names, there were some primary challengers in those write-in names, quite a few of them on both sides of the aisle throughout the state. And that's inherently wrong because all those candidates signed this form that said, hey, we're not going to be on the general ballot. And now some folks may not be out there trying to run on a write-in campaign, but there are a ton of these primary folks on the Democrat and Republican side that are just mad because they lost in a primary, and they're out there trying to run as write-in.
Senator Deeds.
What if there's just a grassroots movement to cast a vote? If I want to vote for Amanda Chase, for example, I don't care if she says she's not a write-in candidate. You're saying that my vote would not count if I wrote her name in.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Deeds, what I'm saying is if Amanda Chase was in the primary process, signed this form with the intent that she's not going to run, then she's saying basically that you can write in my name, but I'm not going to be counted.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Deeds.
But so you're answering yes, my vote, you're saying my vote will not count. My decision to vote for her anyway doesn't matter.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying the candidate that you are voting for signed a pledge that said they are not going to be in the general election. Now, if they tell their constituents, don't write me in, they can't stop them. But as a candidate, I'm making that choice to engage in the primary process. And by that, I'm signing this legal document that binds me to that agreement. What I think sore losers are doing is saying, working around that process. We can either clean up if I'm a candidate in a primary or I'm a write-in candidate, my names won't be counted. But this is the best way we came up with looking at North Carolina's law.
Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask Senator Deeds' question in a slightly different way. If a candidate in the primary loses, and then they just go on vacation for 6 months, and they're gone, and they don't do anything, and Senator Deeds leads a grassroots movement to get them on the ballot, and he gets enough people that they actually win. So Senator Deeds' petition drive means that that candidate that was gone in Cancun chilling because they thought they were done wins the election by 5%. Would that election that election would then be void under your law, even if the majority of folks wanted it, right?
Presumptively so, Mr. Chairman, presumptively so, but did that candidate participate in the primary process? Sure. Okay, so when they participate in the declaration of candidacy, it says their name will not be printed on the ballot, right? So, but it is, when they do a write-in, that's part of the ballot process. This is clarifying that process.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reese. I think we have Senator Sudeline here. The question before you, Senator Sudeline, is your bill is very similar with the opposed, with the difference being that the write-ins. Would you want to conform your bill, roll your bill into Senator Reeves, since they're somewhat identical, and ensure services could point out the difference for you?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I know you're familiar with my bill. Do you want me to speak to anything about my bill right now, or do you just want me to answer that question?
I just want you to answer that question first.
I don't think that I want them. I like the way my bill looks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Senator Reeves, you're up. Any more questions or comments? Any more people speaking in support? Is there any opposition? You have one member speaking in opposition. Please come up, and you would have the timer would be set at 1 minute. Please try to adhere to that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Joan Port, President, Leader Women Voters of Virginia. We oppose this because this bill would let the two major political parties decide who can or cannot be on the ballot, effectively limiting the voters' choices. The parties should not be able to dictate that a candidate that was not nominated in the primary election, that person cannot run as an independent. Thank you.
Thank you. Last word, Senator Reese.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, all I'm trying to do is keep the sore losers out of the game. They have the opportunity. If they want to run as an independent, then run it as an independent. If you're going to run in a party system like we have, two-party system in Virginia, a third-party system with independent, then run as that. We signed the Declaration of Candidacy. It's supposed to mean something that we're not going to be on the ballot. Your word is your bond. This holds them to that word.
Let them make the motion, the substitute motion.
Thank you, Senator Reese. Is there a motion?
Substitute motion.
Substitute motion. Is there a second?
Motion to PBI.
Second.
Please open roll. Please close the roll.
Ayes 8, noes 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senators. Couple of housekeeping notes. Since we have SB 147 and SB 131, I have spoke to the patrons already. They asked for those bills to go by for today. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Please open the roll. Oh, voice vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
107. What's the other one?
It was 147 and 131.
Thank you.
Those bills will go by for today. Next, we have up Senator Peake. Is he here?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Senator Deeds is already smiling at me. I think that must be a good thing.
It's a smile of warmth and camaraderie.
Perfect. That's exactly what I would expect.
But that doesn't change the way I'm going to vote on you. I promise you that.
In that vein, let's start with Senate Bill 40. Is it? There, 42. Yeah, Senate Bill 42. This is on early voting. And this bill would take early voting from 45 days to 21 days. And this year in Virginia, we are going to have 135 days of voting. 135 out of approximately 365 days in a year. That's a lot of voting, a whole lot of voting. And you know who bears the brunt of all that? Our hardworking registrars and their staff. They are open 135 days with no extra money. no extra staff, nothing. This is for them. Did a little research, as I always do on my bills, as Senator Deeds knows. California, 29 days. Connecticut, 15 days. D.C., 12 days. Massachusetts, 17 days for state elections, 10 days for presidential elections. New Jersey, 10 days. New York, 10 days. Washington State, 18 days. These are not bastions of voter suppression, which is what I've been accused of by bringing this bill. They are not. So this is not voter suppression. 135 days is ridiculous. It is difficult to monitor for everyone who is a candidate. It's difficult for them to staff it. And then if you're also running, you know, you like to work the polls, you like to pass out your literature as people go in to vote. I can't take 135 days off, although I didn't run for all those offices. You just never know. But it's hard to miss 45 days of work. That's right. Well, I've talked about that. It's still we haven't run out of time yet. But I can't take 45 days off right now, which is why I'm not running for president. So that's the gist of the bill. I have a feeling y'all are not going to be that receptive to it, but if we are not going to limit 45 days in the general elections, why don't we at least take it down to 15 in the primaries? Give these guys a break. We're having primaries. I guess we're going to have primary in every race. So city council, board of supervisors, everything will have to be a primary. You're going to have them there for 45 days when you can have 4% of the population turn out to vote in some of these primaries. Even a contested Senate primary, you get 10 to 15%. So give these guys a break. Let's cut it in primaries down to 15 days, something. It is a long, long time for them to work.
Thank you, Senator.
That's the gist of that bill.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. Any questions from the committee? Seeing Senator Durant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment and thank the patron for bringing this. I think, having seen a lot of what happens in Virginia, our voters just don't get a break, as the patron noted. And it does link to, I think, a couple of real issues that we need to take in consideration. One is when we have the extended early voting process, it makes it more expensive. And not to mention the fact that when we have every year, an election year in Virginia, we are compounding that voter fatigue. We don't want to alienate our voters. We don't want to disillusion them from the process. So I think this is an important step that we need to take in order to get some more reasonable timeframes when it comes to voting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Durant. Any more questions or comments? Do you have anyone speaking in support of the bill?
I didn't request anyone.
Okay. So just a couple comments from the chair. We've worked hard to ensure that people can have the opportunity and the right to vote. As you can imagine, many of our constituents throughout the Commonwealth and just throughout our nation are working numerous hours and having an opportunity to vote. So lessening those days kind of shortens the opportunities to make sure those members who are working those 40 plus hours a week, the opportunity to vote. And so with that being said, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, just one thing
I'm sorry?
to add. One very important part of this, we looked at the numbers for this past election. 2/3 of early voting occurred in the last 2 weeks. You get the first day, everybody's all excited, then nothing, then the rush is on the last 2 weeks. 2/3 of all early voting in 14 days. But go ahead and vote, please.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. Is there any comment?
Is there anybody that wants to speak against it?
Is there any opposition? Anyone speaking in opposition of this? Please come to the podium. Just as a reminder, you each will have 1 minute. Please adhere to the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Tyee Mallory, representing the Virginia NAACP, and we do not support this measure. We believe that Virginians have now been used to early voting this 45-day period for several years now. We know that it works. We know that they're used to it, and we know that it allows more people to participate in their government and in the election process. And for those reasons, we oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Tram Nguyen with New Virginia Majority. We also oppose this bill. Even though there might be not a huge volume of folks voting in those early days, the registrars are making it available during their open office hours, and so it's actually not a burden, right? So the office of the registrar is already open. Folks can come in and vote while it's open, so it's not an added cost or burden.
Thank you.
Denise Harrington, League of Women Voters of Virginia. The League of Women Voters of Virginia opposes SB 42. The bill unduly restricts early in-person voting in 21 days, since ballots must be ready 45 days before an election for mailing to military and overseas voters. There's no reason to make voters at home wait longer. And I just want to personally say I'm a veteran's wife, and so we need to look out for our military. I don't have to say that too much in Virginia. But the other thing I wanted to say is my entire 36 years of teaching, as a retired teacher now, I can go when I want to. But every voting day was a teacher work day, and I would have to either get up extremely early, 6 in the morning, voting in New Kent County, driving to Henrico County, or voting in Williamsburg, James City County, where I reside now, and then driving all the way to Henrico County. So thank you, but we oppose this bill.
Thank you. Is there a motion? I'm sorry, Senator Peake. Any last words?
Go ahead and vote.
All right. Is there a motion?
Substitute motion.
Is there a second? Open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Mr. Chairman, if we could go to SB 92, this is voter registration up to Election Day. And the purpose of this bill is also to look out for our hardworking registrars. So I believe there's election in Williamsburg. Senator Diggs will know better. I think they brought 800 people to register on Election Day, register and vote. And then in Blacksburg, I think it was over 1,000, 1,200, or somewhere in that number. And so my bill would cut it off the last day of early voting, which is Friday right now. I mean, the registrars on Election Day are dealing with the massive population that is coming there to vote on Election Day, and we expect them in some jurisdictions to have enough staff to register, check the registrations, and do 1,000 people on Election Day. It's too much work for the registrars.
So, Mr. Chair.
Senator Deeds.
The effect of this bill would be to undo the early voting or the same-day voting registration we passed 3 years ago. It's only been in effect about a year.
Mr. Chair, Senator Deeds, it would not. You could still same-day registration, just not Election Day. So you could do same-day registration up until the Friday.
But the whole, Mr.
Up
Chair,
until Friday,
the whole
yeah.
notion of same-day registration is you register on Election Day. It would undo that.
It would undo registering on Election Day and avoid our registrars having a couple of thousand people come up having to register. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reese. Anyone want to speak in support of that? Do we have any opposition? Please come through.
Raise of hands. I've got to get out of here.
Yes, League of Women Voters of Virginia. Again, we urge you not to vote for this bill. Same-day voter registration is a success. It was first implemented in the 2022 general election. Thousands of eligible voters were able to register to vote and cast their ballots without incident in the past 2 election cycles. Because newly registered voters cast their ballots provisionally, the registrars have plenty of time to verify the voters, weeding out who, for example, may not be eligible, who may be in the wrong precinct. The system works. It permits eligible citizens who would otherwise be disenfranchised to cast their votes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jay Deck with the Virginia Education Association. We're always looking for more ways to vote. We feel that it's a democracy staple, and that's the way we should keep it. And Senator Deeds made a great point in that we just passed this bill. We need to give it time. Thank you.
Tram win with New Virginia majority. Just want to officially go on record that we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Talia Mallory, Virginia NAACP, and also we officially oppose the bill.
Senator Reeves, any last words?
Peak.
Peak. Oh,
right.
Peak. You're much taller.
Reeves doesn't play basketball.
That's right. That's right.
No,
you
please
you
don't.
got a prettier jump shot.
Y'all can vote, please.
No last words?
No. Just go ahead and vote.
Is there a motion?
We got it.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chair.
There
I
a
move
sec-
the PBI of the bill.
Second.
Please open the roll. Open the vote.
As 8, no 6.
Next bill, Mr.
Next
Chairman. The day of the peak is really coming to a crashing halt, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill number 32. This is Social Security number when you register to vote, like when you show up on election day to register with the registrar right there at the voting booth. She would actually check your Social Security number to make sure you're really the person that you say you are before you cast a vote in an election, to make sure that only people who are legally allowed to vote are voting. So far, I've brought this bill. This is my 8th year. I think I've brought it 6 or 7 times. Governor McAuliffe vetoed it. Then I had the pleasure of having Governor Northam veto it, and then we lost the majority, and I have not gotten it out of committee yet. So I would move to strike line C, subsection C on 34 through 39. This is not, which tells the registrar to check it every year, every August, and strike names that don't match up. So I don't want that. I'm not trying to strike names. I just want, when people register, to check their Social Security number to see if it matches their name and see if it's who they say they are. And if it doesn't, they contact them. They still get to vote provisionally. It allows them to vote provisionally. They can bring anything. They've got months and months to bring any kind of ID to show that it is who they say they are and that they are legally allowed to vote. It's a fantastic common sense bill. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why it's not the law of the Commonwealth. And Mr. Chair, I've got to run. I'm going to hand off my photo ID bill, Senate Bill 45, to Senator McGuire, who has a very similar bill.
So yes, the question, do you mind conforming those two together?
That's fine.
All right.
Confine mine with McGuire's, however, or whatever.
I got you.
Yeah, with
Thank you. So
with
do you,
McGuire without.
before you run, is there anyone that speaks in support of this bill? And do we have people speak in opposition of the bill? And can you?
I gotta go.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. Next year.
Just
Again, Tram win with New Virginia majority. Since Senator Peake has introduced this bill, we have opposed it every year. Part of the reason being, since 2009, the Social Security Administration, the Office of the Inspector General, has officially said that their database is flawed in terms of matching for voter registration purposes. We know that this has happened in other states where the match isn't great, and folks have been able to, folks have been unable to register to vote because of this flawed system. So we oppose it.
Thank you.
Denise Harrington, League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters opposes SB 32. The bill requires matching voters to the Social Security Administration database, a system that is not directly available to state governments because of the risk of revealing personal information of American citizens. Virginia already uses the detailed information collected by Department of Motor Vehicles, a more efficient and reliable process. This proposal would have a significant fiscal impact and would impose significant burdens on election administrators using this database, and process could increase the chance of even more Virginians being inadvertently disenfranchised than has happened in recent months. Thank you.
Talia Mallory with the Virginia NAACP, and for the reasons stated by our allies, we also oppose the bill.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I think Senator Peake had some amendments and some line amendments, which I would move.
Second. The line amendments, Mr. Mr. Chair, the line amendments, I think I heard him say it remove lines 34, language on from lines 34 to through 39. Is that correct?
I believe the line, I'm not sure the line maybe can help us, but it was just to make sure they don't have to do it every day. Was that? I'm not, Senator Peak is not here, and if you don't have the direct lines.
Mr. Chair, yeah, it was line 34 after C through line 40D.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the amendments? A voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment is accepted. Is there another motion on the bill?
Move to report as amended.
Substitute motion to PP out of the bill.
Second.
Please open the roll. Open the vote.
Ayes 8, noes 6.
Thank you. Since we have, we get Senator Suderline is next on the list. I believe you have one bill before, SB 109.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 109 is before you for your consideration. It seeks to follow the practice that we had in the Commonwealth basically up until June of this year. To clarify that, the code currently says that if a candidate is defeated in the primary, then and is not nominated, or currently says if they're defeated, their name does not appear on the ballot. This would change it to if their name appears on the primary ballot and is not nominated, then they will not. So what that means is you have to withdraw before you've subjected the taxpayers and the registrars to running all the early voting. We have an Attorney General opinion from the current Attorney General that was issued in September from Attorney General Mieres to Senator Obenshain, stating that a candidate can file, run in the primary, go up until the Friday before the primary, and withdraw, and then file on Monday or Tuesday as another party or as an independent. So what we currently have, which was not the understanding of this was not the understanding or the practice until this year, you now have a situation where someone can file against a candidate, another candidate in their party's nomination. They have the benefit of seeing where the early vote came for 41 days, and everyone's had to pay for it. The other campaign, all the volunteers have done their time and effort. They then withdraw. They could actually then be nominated by the other party if they did not already have a candidate, or they could run and file as an independent. And I think that we should follow what we did for decades in the Commonwealth, which is if you ran in the primary, you did not get to then be on the ballot in the general election. And you can still run as a write-in under my bill. I don't change anything with that. The public can still cast their vote for whoever they want, but you do not get the benefit of basically a second bite at the apple by running through the primary through over 90% of it and withdrawing at the last moment.
Senator Deeds.
So, Senator Suderline, you're saying that they go through 85% of it and they drop out and they get another nomination, or they run as an independent. They're allowed to do it then, but they can't at 90%?
No, sir. As soon as their name appears on the ballot, so thus when early voting began.
Okay.
If someone files for a Democratic or Republican nomination, which are the only two nominations you can file for in a primary, and you start the process, but you don't actually get to the voting, you could still withdraw and say, I'm changing directions. But if you actually go through the process, votes are actually being cast, your name appeared on the ballot, then you can't then run as independent. So what I first became aware of this new interpretation, which was news to a lot of people, because in the community I represent, a candidate challenged the incumbent supervisor, ran against the supervisor until the Friday before the primary, recognized that the supervisor was going to be renominated, withdrew, and immediately filed as an independent at the same visit to the registrar's office, and then ran against him as an independent. The other party never even contested it, but the situation was, and that was the only primary we had going on in a lot of that area. So that meant the taxpayers, the registrars had to go through all that work, and the other, we don't always do things for the other candidate because, if you're running, that's it. But they had to pay for all that campaign when the reality was the other candidate just quit and then ran as an independent. And since you don't have an RD on the ballot in the general election, they basically went and did it for a second bite. And prior to early voting, this was not, we had the understanding that if you were in the primary, that was it. But we also didn't subject, there wasn't the cost, which I'm not saying that there's not value to that cost, but this cost is bared, and then there's no value for it because the primary just ends up getting canceled on the Tuesday, and then they go run as an independent. So I think that this is something that we need to go, this is not revolutionary, this just goes back to our understanding prior to this year and the Attorney General's opinion that clarified that this is what the Attorney General thinks that this is allowed.
Thank you. We have a question from Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is for council. My first thought upon hearing the bill presentation is, why wouldn't we say that the election is essentially done when the early vote starts, and saying once the early vote starts, you're locked in? But I wonder, is there a difference in how that filters out in the law versus how this would filter out in the law? Does that make sense?
Mr. Chair, Senator Van Valkenburg, the early vote starts 45 days, which is when the ballots have to be ready and printed. So functionally, your name is printed on the ballot at the 45th day. So they kind of go together in that sense. So when your name is printed on the ballot, it's going out immediately. Now, it might be there's some reason to delay the ballot getting printed or something like that. In some cases, they might print it early. But for the most part, those two things go together.
So, follow up, Mr. Chair.
Senator has the floor.
Right. So 45 days, the name is printed. It goes out to wherever it goes out. People start voting for that person. If we were to say you had to drop out before that day, or you're considered defeated, right, by the time the election comes, would that have other electoral impacts that I'm not thinking about because I'm just thinking about this bill for the first time right now, as it filters out with campaign finance or something like that? Because to his point, right, I mean, if somebody goes all the way with the early vote and then just, I'm kidding, right, I'm done, I mean, I think that just goes against the whole idea of fairness anyway, right? You started on that 45 days, you should be locked in at that 45 days. I think that's just a basic fairness issue, but I wonder what impact that has on other parts of how the election process plays out. If you were to lock them in and say you can't drop at this point, or even if you do drop, legally it's not considered a drop.
Right. Mr.
Direct the question to... Yes, but he's not his counsel. He's only here to help clarify. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, Senator Van Valkenburg, I don't think there would be any impact on campaign finance in this case by saying that you would interpret his withdrawal as a defeat. Right. So in that case, the candidate could still say, my campaign's over, and if they wanted to, they could file a final report for campaign finance purposes. If they, under current law, if they did turn around, withdraw, and then turn around immediately and start an independent campaign, as soon as they do anything for that independent campaign, like file or collect any money, they're back on campaign finance rules. And so this would prevent them from doing the independent campaign, but even if they ran as a write-in, they would still be back on the campaign finance rules. So I don't think you could make that change. It's functionally the same as what Senator Sutherland's saying, and I don't think there would be any difference for campaign finance purposes, no.
One last follow-up, Mr. Chair. I guess this would go to
Senator
Sutherland. I guess why I wonder why that came to my head, Senator, is the idea of you would be sending a different message, right? You would be saying, hey, if you're running for a campaign, as soon as that first day hits on the early vote, you're in, whether you like it or not, right? I don't know. Does that make sense, as opposed to doing it on the back end? I'm not trying to, it's your bill, get my own damn bill, but.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I would tell Senator Van Valkenburg, I think he understands the problem I'm trying to fix, and I think this is one way to fix it. I have no objection to fixing it a different way, and I would welcome, if you'd like to propose an amendment, I have a feeling I'd probably be agreeable.
Well, I have a question before. How pervasive is this problem that we're talking about? How many other times this has happened throughout the Commonwealth that we felt we had to legislate this issue?
So the interpretation was that you couldn't, that the current language that says defeated, it was widely understood that you were defeated if you did not win the nomination. An attorney advised our local registrar, basically with the whole strategy, just avoid litigation, said, no, let this person run as a write-in. So that was basically just the interpretation in our local community. So it wasn't something that was discussed that widely. And then the Attorney General came in and opined that he agreed that this is currently allowed. So I would tell you that I'm not aware of it happening anywhere else yet, but I can tell you as soon as there were folks in the Republican Party that knew what was happening here, there was an effort to recruit a defeated or a candidate that was defeated in the Democratic primary, and 5 days beforehand, most all of us could have guessed what was going to happen, to recruit that person to run as an independent.
So
and that ended up not happening. But I think that this current interpretation really invites that to happen all the time, and it probably won't be a huge thing for the federal races because they have 1,000 signatures. But in our races, where you only need 250, or most local races or delegate where you only need 125, I expect this is going to come up significantly. And I also expect with several of our city councils that are up this going forward, I could see this happening frequently. Because if you're in a situation where you recognize I'm not getting to third place in the primary in my city council, you withdraw at the last moment, and then you jump in as an independent. So I think this is something that is not a big issue. It was an issue for my community. I think it's going to become an issue for a lot of our communities.
So just a question, I guess, for filing for candidacy. Isn't there a window you have to have your signatures in before you can actually run for another office? So particularly if you get all your signatures in and you make the ballot, so to speak, you run in a primary and you don't make it, isn't that window is already closed as far as gathering more signatures to run or be eligible to run again?
It only is if you don't withdraw the Friday before. As long as you, which was the situation for us. So in the past, someone could not run against, if you were in the primary, you would not have been able to go get the signatures because you wouldn't have known that you had lost yet. And we understood that that you would have lost either way. But now, under this interpretation, and I like the early vote, but when you have, especially in primaries where we can tell regionally likely what's happening with a lot of these primaries, and as polling gets more sophisticated, you're having more people are going to know a few days before their primary that they're not going to make it, and then they can get the signatures. And like I said, I don't think it'll be an issue for federal or statewide races. I guess it could be if you had enough money and resources, but I do think this is going to be a big issue in General Assembly races and local races with the low signature requirement.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the bill? Anyone speak in opposition of the bill? Do you have any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion? Open the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 4.
Thank you, Senator. Bill reports.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we will hear, we'll get Senator McGuire. You have an identical bill to Senator Peaks, I believe, SB 81. And
Do we want to roll 45 into 81 or
We do.
81 to 45?
that's a great question.
Roll Peaks into McGuire's.
Okay.
Okay.
Peak was okay with that.
So we'll roll Peaks bill into
I'll second that motion.
81. It's a motion. There's a second. Is this a voice vote or a recorded vote? Open the vote. This is to roll the two bills together. Senator McGuire, also this bill carries a financial impact as well. So if it makes it out of committee, it would have to be referred to finance. You can continue.
Mr. Chairman, members.
Hold on, just 1 second. Members.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Members. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, currently in Virginia and across the country, a majority of Americans don't trust our elections. And I think as legislators and elected officials, we need to do our best to strengthen trust in our institutions. In Virginia, during our elections, for example, someone can just write a name and address on a simple ID confirmation form, sign it, and vote. They do not have to prove in any way that they are actually that person. And so you have to have a valid ID for a majority of things that we do. For example, if you guys want to get open a bank account, to get a driver's license, to drive a car, you have to have a photo ID. And so to build trust in our elections, we are presenting Senate Bill 81 to require a voter ID to rebuild trust. And that's, I mean, obviously, that along with what Senator Peake said is pretty much the bill.
And Mr. Chair.
Senator D.
Mr. Chair, Senator McGuire, this bill, right now you're required to have you have an ID vote. The purpose of this bill is to require photo ID. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
So I want to speak with you, Senator
It's
McGuire.
it's more than just that.
I'm sorry, just 1 second.
Okay.
You can continue.
Sure. And so a photo ID that is from a government issued or a professional institution like a university, that sort of a photo ID.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the bill here? All right. Anyone want to speak in opposition of the bill? Yes.
Thank you very much, Denise Harrington. Quite simply, the League of Women Voters opposes this bill. This would reverse important current law that doesn't require every voter to present a photo ID in order to vote in person. A photo ID rule existed in Virginia between 2014 and 2020, only 6 years in the Commonwealth's long history. Voters have voted without incident both before and since that time. Many older voters and those who do not drive lack photo ID, and I'm just going to stop it there really quickly. My great-grandmother was born in 1888, And we did not have a photo, there was not a photo ID. And there was a whole bunch of people like her who were during the days of segregation and where the births were. And then right now, my 95-year-old mother-in-law who lives with us has an ID now, but again, even getting that because she was born in a house with a midwife and just got a little certificate or whatever, getting her a voter, getting her an ID, even to get her driver's license didn't come really until like the 1950s or 60s. So what I'm saying to you is could take Virginia back, and we don't have the best history in voting. And thank you so much for hearing my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Taye Mallory with the Virginia NAACP, and we do not support the bill. We do not want to go back to any sort of photo ID. Thank you.
Tram Win with New Virginia Majority, and we continue to oppose strict photo ID requirements. Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee? Yeah, Senator Sturtevant.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out for the record, to the extent we have a record, that there are folks who have been trying to get online to testify, not just on this bill, but others today who have apparently not had access. And we've got about 50 people here in person in the room, but that online opportunity has not been made available to some folks, and I hope we'll be able to get that addressed before our next meeting.
Thank you, Senator Sturtevant. Let me address the online virtual comments. We will be taking online virtual comments in future committees. We had to get as you can imagine, this is still very beginning of the session, and so we had to work out some procedural issues, but we will be taking virtual comments next week and going forward from there. Senator McGuire, any last words?
I would just say thank you for considering this option of building confidence, restoring confidence in Virginia elections.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Substitute motion to PBI.
Second.
Please open the vote.
Ayes 8, noes 6.
Thank you, Senator. We will hear Senator Stewart. Oh, okay, send for him. And then we'll go to Senator DeStefis next door as well. So I guess I'll hear I'm up. So I'll.
Okay, Mr. Chair, you have a bill, it's Senate Bill 188. Do you want to present that bill from the dais or from the podium? Either one.
Yeah, I'll present it from the dais out of respect.
Senator Rouse.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, I have an elections bill for you in just a moment. I also have expert witness here today from the city of Virginia Beach. I bring this bill on behalf of the city. In HB 409 and SB 188, the House version permits a locality who is under a court order for a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act or the Virginia Voting Rights Act to adopt an ordinance converting one or more at-large members of a public body to a single district to comply with such an order. If a locality chooses to adopt such an ordinance, it would be referred to allow any member whose seat is converted to complete their existing term. This legislation will allow a locality to make this even if the court order is later vacated, giving the locality the ability to avoid additional litigation. This would not require the adoption of such an ordinance. It only provides a locality the option to adopt an ordinance when they believe it is the locality's best interest. As an example where this is pertinent, the city of Virginia Beach in 2021 was mandated by the U.S. District Court to change their voting system from a system that requires 7 city council members to be elected at large but to reside in a district to a 10-1 district where city council members were only elected by the citizens of that district. The city of Virginia Beach appealed that decision, and in the same year, the General Assembly passed legislation that prohibits the use of at-large district systems like the one Virginia Beach was using. And because of the change in Virginia law, the U.S. Court of Appeals vacated the district court ruling, remanding the case back to the general court for further review. The city has, in communication with the general district judge, has made it clear that the city of Virginia Beach, that only the district system imposed by the general district court would be permitted. And the city has implemented the new voting system, using it first in 2022, and we use it again this year. And the city is seeking this authority along with changes to its charter so that the Charter of Virginia Code and local code are all aligned with each other with the electoral system that has been mandated by federal.
So let me see if I can understand this, Senator Rouse. This bill allows the city of Virginia Beach to comply with the federal court order?
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
And I have an expert.
Are there any questions from members of the committee? Okay, you've got an expert.
I don't think we need him. If there are any questions, he's here to answer.
Okay, he's a real expert.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the audience that's in favor of the bill? Is there anybody in opposition? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Are there further motions? If not, open the roll. Okay.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now it's your committee.
Thank you, Senator Deeds. He's just now presenting his bill, and Senator Deestaff, is he in waiting? He has a bill up as well. He has several over there. So what we'll do then in committee, we will pass these bills by for today to the next committee. Is there a motion to pass these bills by for today?
You said until next week.
Yeah, till next week.
Maybe next decade.
Yeah, maybe next decade. All right, is this a voice vote or voice vote? All in favor? To pass? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.